I think it's important to note that you can actually get involved with us on Twitter as well. There seems to be some lively and interesting questions coming across. So, I mean, even if you guys in the audience yourself don't have any questions, then you can always sort of scan through Twitter and maybe use some of them for yourself. The postgraduate officer is sort of in charge of the postgrads, obviously. And for those who don't know what the RAG Chair is, it's the Raising and Giving sort of group on campus that they're in charge of. So it's a very important role. So I'm now going to welcome Alan Sutherland to the stage.
You are, baby. Womanizer, womanizer, you're a womanizer, oh, womanizer, oh, you're a womanizer, baby. You are,
Round of applause for Alan. Now also we'll welcome the candidates to the stage.
Come on, round of applause. Yes, check where you are. Thank you. Being that I stopped listening to music in 1983, your joke was lost on me. Right, good evening, everybody. Here are candidates for Postgraduate Development Officer and a RAG Chair. And now we're going to learn more about them on our VT, which will arrive very shortly on that screen over there.
The candidates for Postgraduate Development Officer, Adam Bloss.
Hey, I'm Adam Bloss and I'm here to run for Postgraduate Development Officer. You should vote for me because I pledge to unify postgraduate ideals in order to make your time here at Surrey as valuable and inspirational as possible.
Richard Rees.
Hi, my name is Richard Rees and I'm running to be your Postgraduate Development Officer. As someone who's already very heavily involved in the Students' Union, voting for me will give you a part-time executive officer who will lead by example in making the most of our Students' Union.
And the candidate for RAG Chair, Ruth Wyatt.
Hi, I'm Ruth Wyatt and I'm running for RAG Chair this year because I think there's so much potential in the RAG Society at this university and I think I have the right skills to fulfil this role successfully.
Big round of applause for our candidates. You all know the drill by now. All the candidates have had a question pre-submitted. They've had some time to prepare. And that is what I'm going to ask them now. What I was going to do is ask the postgraduate candidates their question, and then we'll ask them some questions on the manifesto, and then I will turn to you, Ruth, and then we'll ask you some RAG questions. We're combining these positions because they're slightly low in number, so it's not the fact that RAG and postgrads go particularly well together. Of course, you can now start thinking about the sort of things that you want to ask the candidates, and you can start tweeting them and getting them already in your head. Gentlemen, the most common perception is that postgraduates have is that the union is for undergrads. And PGRs, that's postgraduate researchers, consider themselves as staff. So why are you different? Adam?
I want to clarify how this question assumes that my view is promotable as it currently stands, and that there is a difference between leading and representation. I seek to embody both. I believe that supporting events from the union is hugely important for making the most of the year as a postgraduate. There is a perception that creates a division, I agree, with undergrads and postgrads, to a point that it manifests itself to postgrads not even believing they're allowed to step into the union or events or societies. The difference I want to establish, as stated in my manifesto, is to inspire and motivate postgraduates to take a step into this union and to utilise platforms such as Postgraduate Society, Leading by Example, and sourcing help from future VPs. I want to state that my differences and beliefs has to be a representation of the postgraduate voice, alongside the principles that I believe in, which is what you are voting for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Richard.
So I'm Richard. I've just finished my second year of my PhD, going into third. I am a PGR. And although I kind of consider myself a staff sometimes, I'm a big believer in the movement of students, and I take more from the Students' Union than just my discount down in the high street. So I disagree with the point you raised in the question. I'm here today running to be Postgraduate Development Officer because I make use of the union and I want to help other people make the same sort of use out of it that I have. I'm a big believer in sport. That's like the main point of my manifesto. I'm currently a signatory of the lacrosse club, and I'm on the Team Surrey executive, sports executive. So I plan to lead by example in showing that there is more, and that other postgraduates can make the same use that I have.
Thank you very much. Right, now let's turn to what you've said in our handy manifesto guide. You'll find them under P. That's on page... We do this every time. It's on page, there is no numbers. It's near the middle. Adam, you talk about respecting official pathways and new forms of relaying information to the university. What do you mean by that? We had here, what you, semaphore, interpretive dance, we weren't quite sure. What was the new forms of relaying information to the university?
Well, I'm a creative individual, so creative dance wouldn't be a bad thing. No, I'm trying to respect the official pathways such as union and executive meetings to understand how to respect the relaying we can have between our communication, to clarify the student voice and the issues where they're based on, and also...
This was the new forms of relaying information to the university?
Yeah, so to relaying information, like to using the new Surrey forums and being able to be part of those. I find that a lot of postgrads don't think that these things exist, to be able to appear and to, I guess you could say, present these in a manageable form would create some better engagement with these new forms of entertainment and information.
Thanks very much. Now, Richard, you are unique in this election. Out of the 54 students that actually put their name in, you are the only postgrad researcher. Why do you think that is?
Who knows? That's probably why I need to run for this role, because I am the only postgraduate researcher who is heavily engaged in the Students' Union, as I was led to believe and was encouraged by people to run for this. I'm downstairs in the union quite often, so I get a lot from the Students' Union. I have to show other PGRs what I'm getting, and that's a heck ton of fun, loads of friends, a great social life, and other skills to add to my CV beyond having DR before my name. I help run societies, I go out and do a lot of charity work, so show people that this is all on offer for postgraduates as well as undergrads.
Thank you very much. Ruth, let us turn to RAG. Good evening. You may like to sit slightly closer to the microphone. Now, about RAG, raising and giving, raising money, giving it away to charity. During this time of austerity, do you not think that charity now begins at home and students are more concerned about their own back pocket?
Hi, I'm Ruth. I do think that that's a reasonable statement, because students do need to think carefully about where their money goes, because we're all students and we're basically poor. So it's only fair they think about their back pockets, but I don't think this should affect RAG. I think students don't need to give money. I think the focus needs to be on students giving their time. By students contributing time, it makes RAG raids, challenge adventures, etc. possible, which encourages people in the local community to donate instead. Fundraising like RAG raids, challenge events, rely on relatives and the public for donations, not the students. Also, if an event has an incentive, generally students want to get involved. So, I don't know, a cake sale or something, you get something back. So, students are for that. Also, I'm climbing Kilimanjaro this year, and many of my friends are students, and although they couldn't give a lot, they still donated something. So I think there's some money out there that students can give. Maybe it's not a lot, but something's better than nothing when it comes to charity. So.
Well, talking about small amounts of money, looking at your manifesto here, you say at the end, I would lead RAG in further successes. Well, being that this year RAG have actually spent more than they've raised, in which way would you define success?
They have had some successes. I believe that the original bar crawl was a success. But I plan to...
Overall, the aim of it is to end up with more money than you started with.
I agree. I think that there needs to be a rethink in the way that they promote, actually do some promoting, of some kind. I think going into the halls, and like into all the floors, not just walking through one door and out again, is important. I think using the media, utilising StagTV, Stag Radio, even the Stag paper, I think would be really useful to promote RAG and get it out there.
Somebody's just asked online, what's charitable about a bar crawl?
Not a lot, unless if you're you can use T-shirts to raise the money, and that's a fair point.
Okay. So I'm slightly discombobulated. Chris, you're using the acronym PGDO, and as I glance, it looks like the pedo candidates. So the PGDO candidates, what do they think about the recent acts of a postgraduate careers advisor? Do you think that is something that's required in the university, being that you know, postgraduates have very much different career needs than undergrads? Adam?
Could you repeat the question, please?
So what do you think about the recent acts of a postgraduate careers advisor within the university?
I believe that is a huge step forward for postgraduates. We have a different career path than undergrads in terms of how we try to perceive things. It tends to be towards a more academic route sometimes more specified.
I think you may have misheard what I said there. The university have axed their dedicated postgraduate careers advisor. That position has been lost currently.
Oh, it has been lost?
Yes.
Sorry, I misheard.
No, I think that was...
I'm hard of hearing, so any board members...
Oh,
you can,
I apologise.
Then I guess I inverse my proposition and say that is a shame. We do need more guidance to understand our careers and to figure out exactly how we can progress from our postgraduates. It's all right saying we have an extra letter in front of our name, but doing that sometimes can make us overqualified, can create a sense of what are we trying to be, and so on. We've got a really, really sad state of affairs if we don't have the correct form of career advice.
Richard, what sort of careers advice do postgraduates acquire from the university?
Well, as a researcher, we make use of the Researcher Development Programme, which includes all our careers advice, and there are mandatory modules that we go to that, as well as optional ones. But for taught postgraduates, they don't come to the Researcher Development Programme, although they would be able to. So perhaps there would need to be an address whereby the PGTs are either incorporated into the Research and Development Programme, or the undergraduate careers advice they have a section of that tailored towards them. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing that we don't have postgraduate career service, because there's a lot of overlap with services that are already provided.
Thank you very much. Now, dear audience, what would you like to know from our candidates for Postgraduate Development Officer and RAG Chair? Nothing, so let us turn to online. Ruth, what is your fundraising experience, and how would you get the RAG team behind you?
So my experience is relatively limited, but not too limited. About 2 years ago, I ran Race for Life for cancer research, and I raised about £400. And this year, I'm climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Surrey RAG was supposed to do it, and then they just didn't. So, but I thought, stuff it, I want to do it anyway. So I signed up with University of Liverpool and Hull, and I'm tagging along with them. I've reached the target first before 315 other students, and I reached my meningitis research target, which is great. And I think as of before I got here, I think I'm now at £3,250, and I only had to raise 2,850. So yeah, 3,000. Sorry. And I think that I did that in 10 weeks. So I think that I've got some good ideas and fundraising ideas for that. What was the second part of the question?
How would you get the team behind you? How would you motivate a team?
Okay. I think it's important to have the right enthusiasm and the right dedication. I don't think you can get... I think to have the right committee to begin with is really important. Having the right experience, I think, is going to help me when it comes to other people wanting to fundraise. I think I'll be open-minded to other ideas as well, And I think if you have a variety of ideas and a variety of fundraising opportunities, I mean, at the beginning, it's going to be, the most important thing is going to be getting more people involved with RAG, because at the moment there's only about 20 people in the whole committee. And so if you've got, 10 positions, that only gives 10 people to actually help. So there's a lot of pressure.
This is what I was going to say. I mean, your nomination came in at the 11th hour. It's just you versus Ron. I mean, is this an indication that RAG has perhaps had its day?
Definitely not. I want to really try and shake that up a bit. I've got some ideas that I really want to implement. I think there's a way to engage people. I think if you have new fundraising ideas, you ask the students what they want. For example, say for Sex Ball, that didn't go well at all. I think they raised some T-shirts and then not very many people showed up. But they started promoting it 3 or 4 days before. They only did a cake sale that week when it's supposed to be a week of fundraising. If you get a few weeks in advance, you get some ideas down, you've got a committee behind you that wants to work and push and be on campus and working out what charities are going to go for it. I think you can get ideas out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to press this point. Well, I do want to press this point, hence I'm pressing it. But all throughout this evening and last night, we've heard about welfare candidates who wanted welfare warriors. We will hear about from society candidates who want active societies. We'll hear from sports candidates who want people to be involved in sports. If RAG was the only thing out there, I'm sure you would have great success in having a full RAG team. But the fact is, it is a very crowded marketplace for student activities today. And RAG is being crowded out by other things. And is it perhaps time that the union focuses on something else that students want more?
No. I think fundraising doesn't have, like in a football team or a rugby team, I don't know, whatever team, you have to be at training on whatever days and then you do the games. I guess there's some flexibility, but when it comes to fundraising, you could do, I don't know, a cake stall once a month. You could do, we're going to go and do a raid on this day. If you can try and keep it free, that would be really great. We're going to try and raise £200 on this day. If there's 10 of you that can come along, that would be great. If you've got a huge team that have at least signed up to the mailing list, you can then just say, are there 10, are there 15 people that can come along? And then hopefully you might get some more engagement. And if there's more meetings, more socials, more activity within the society, they might be more willing to then do more.
Thanks very much. Gentlemen, back to the issue of postgraduates. Now, one thing that we frequently have to wrestle with is the staggered start dates of PGR students. Not just PGR, but PGTs as well. Postgrads start all throughout the year. There's January starts, there's matures, there's part-times. PGRs can start at any time. Now, we have an award-winning welcome for undergraduates when they all arrive at the same time, nice and convenient. Realistically, what do you think should be the minimum level welcome from the Students' Union to all postgraduates? Bearing in mind, we're not going to be able to do the full Freshers' Week experience, but what would you like to see as a minimum for postgraduate students arriving throughout the year?
Do you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
So I was a January starter on my PhD, and so I was here a couple of weeks, went to Refreshers Fair, and this was a couple of years ago, and there wasn't a great deal here, if I'm honest. And I went around trying to find clubs that I've been to before in my previous degrees, and I came late in the day. But
Can I ask, where did you do your undergraduate?
I did my undergrad in Exeter and a master's in Loughborough.
Oh, right, okay.
So coming here, as a January starter, Refreshers Fair was like a small event at the time, and I know over the last couple of years it's been really grown by the union. Now it's quite a big deal. And in lacrosse, which is a club I'm involved in, we pick up quite a lot of master's students and older students, which is useful. So that as a welcome has now come along really well. And I think continuing to grow the work that's been done to promote Active Freshers Fair would definitely help for January starters.
Okay. Adam?
I agree with the Freshers Fair needing a big revamp specifically for postgraduates because they can come in any time. This is my 4th year at Surrey University. I'm doing a master's here. And
sorry, Adam, to cut in, did you do an undergraduate here?
I did an undergraduate here, yes. So I realised that coming from that point of view of being able to have that Freshers Week, I have a lot of friends who came in, much like Richard, at an odd time than usual. So we don't have that big experience. The minimum fundamentals, I would say, is a very, very good support pack for postgraduate. bloody frightening sometimes. So that's a swear word. And to try to figure that out by yourself and to figure out your own position in the union, how to access the union, how to work the university by yourself is very tricky. So to know exactly where to go from your first days at university is hugely crucial, I find, as well as a revamped refreshers fair.
Adam, I'm both going to ask you separate questions on your experience arriving here. Adam, if you were already here as an undergrad, what difference did you find in the university experience becoming a postgrad? Was it just like a continuation, or did you feel some kind of a change in the relationship between you and the institution, between you and the union?
I found that the union relationship changed. However, I was able to keep a smooth transition because I was able to have societies that I'm part of, being able to create a new society that I'm part of, and that kept me active. So without that, I would have felt quite a big dip. And I'm not sure if Richard would agree with me, but that dip is something that could be incredibly disencouraging, and to make sure that you can work with that is something that needs to be supported through either that particular careers advisor or a personal tutor that works for you, and so on.
So, Richard, similar but different. Your welcoming experience was at 2 other universities. So, what did you feel was lacking when you arrived at Surrey? You've talked about refreshers fair, but in general, when you arrived, were you just left to get on with it, or was there something more substantial to it than that?
Yes, so there isn't the big song and fanfare as a January starter, regardless of being postgrad taught or research. It's difficult because you come into a role and suddenly it's 9 to 5. You have an academic supervisor who kind of wants you to do work, but you don't see them very often. And you come to, as I did, come to a new place, and it's hard to find your footing in your own little world because, of course, everyone else has already been here a few months. They have where they feel a part of, and it took me quite a while to get my feet on the ground and find something that I could be involved in. That was my experience. I don't know whether there was much lacking, that the union could do more beyond making it more obvious what was going on, and having all the little groups of societies and sports clubs open to taking on people in January, which has been done with Refreshers Fair.
Now, bear with me a minute. There was a very interesting article in the Stag a few weeks ago all about the REF. The REF is the Research Excellence Framework. It defines how much money the university will receive for research for the next 5 years. And most universities have stuffed their teams full of star researchers. The better your research, the more money you receive for 5 years. And there's been some amazing research done here at Surrey. However, once the REF is completed in the next few months, would it be fair to say that these star researchers are perhaps no longer needed? Is there a risk that research drops down the agenda in favour of teaching and learning, which is examined every year with the NSS, and that undergraduate competitive courses are focused at the expense of research for the next 5 years? Richard.
Yeah, so I'm quite familiar with this. In my department, we're aware of this impending deadline, and it's work like crazy, push out papers. Now we need to show how good we are. It's not that we don't work hard the rest of the time, of course, and I don't think this is from like pressure from the university, not the union. I don't think we feel like there's a release on pressure or a shift in focus from us to the undergrads. It's just, as with any deadline, and us postgraduates are just the same as undergraduates, as it comes closer to the deadline, you realise that there's a lot more work to do than at first we realised.
Adam.
I guess I can reiterate that point, but as an undergraduate, the pressure of the £9,000 fee and us now being 8th in the university, according to The Guardian, if I'm correct, allows us to have that expanse of education and higher grade boundaries. We do have that problem of the deadline being enforced upon us. Like, I'm not part of the research institute as such. I am a master's, but I can understand that if I want to stay here at Surrey, I automatically have to figure out to publicise maybe some of my articles, my journals, and any research that might get affected because of this. The Surrey Star Candidate scheme was a very interesting, decent scheme that forward some fantastic research. But without that, sometimes we have, we might have a problem gap between the transition of these two new schemes, and we might end up being between a rock and a hard place, as they say.
Ruth, I will return to charity fundraising, and I apologise if we've suddenly gone very highbrow, but that's what happens when postgraduates sit on the stage. What qualities would you be looking for? I'm not going to be so crass as Charlie and ask you who you would vote for as VP Education, but what qualities would you be looking for from a VP Education? Because they're the ones that you'll be working with the most. Adam?
True understanding of the values people want from students, the understanding that our work is our identity at this stage and level, and as my code word, I guess inspiration, to be able to inspire, to work hard and not be able to completely flood your life with work is important.
Thank you. Richard?
Charlie needs to respect the right to a private ballot a little bit more, I think. But
I think so too.
VP Education, someone that if I was elected would work well with me to engage postgraduate community. That's like why I'm sat here today. They have all the pressure on them from other people regarding undergraduates and other aspects of education, but for me, I'm here to represent postgraduates. I want to know that they can help me improve the experience of postgrads here.
Okay. I'll return to you in a minute, gentlemen. Ruth, very interesting question raised on Twitter, and I think there's more to it than meets the eye. Students, when they hit a hardship wall, they have to go to student care. There's a hardship fund. The hardship fund, a lot of the money comes from graduates, the annual fund. Would it not be fair for RAG to be fundraising for students in hardship?
I guess that's something that could potentially be discussed. I mean, I don't know if you could decide on a scale of... it's a slippery slope, because if you want to help everyone, then there's only so much fundraising that's even being done at the moment. Mm-hmm. Like, at the moment, it's quite limited. So, I mean, it depends. We have to have our 3 charities. You have to have 1 local, 2 international that you choose.
You don't have to. You're the RAG Chair. You can have 15 national and 1 local, or you could have 100 duck-sized horses and 1 horse-sized duck, if you like.
Maybe I'll do that. I guess it would be something to take to the committee and have a real think about, because saying that, I know someone that has really struggled, so it might be something that, again, it's a slippery slope. To what degree do you help everyone? At what point do you stop that, and how can you distribute enough for it to make a difference across a wide...
What would you make your #1 charity?
Right now?
Yeah.
I really like, actually, the one that's at the moment. Oh, if I had to change it. I've got really into meningitis research doing Kilimanjaro. That's really, really... seeing little kids that are, like, have their arms chopped off because they've got a disease running, like, it's awful. It's really, really sad. So that would be something that I'd definitely go for.
Yes, I think having your arm chopped off is not a positive experience. Any questions from the floor? We've heard lots. Jordan, I saw your hand spring up. Yes, yeah, I'm afraid I can't see your name. And
this one's for Ruth. So in previous years, RAG has had a really high presence on campus. This year, how many people can say they exist? What would you do to raise RAG's profile next year?
I think I'm going to cut in here. I think Jordan has kind of encapsulated the mountain you have to climb, if you excuse me that. And this is the general perception of RAG. It has just fallen out of the student consciousness. And, you know, this is a huge thing to try and relaunch.
I know. I think so a starting point is going to be Fresh as Fair. For me, if I get this position, it could go to Ron. But yeah, Fresh is Fair, to absolutely just put it out there, who we are, what we do. Invest in some promotional T-shirts, that sort of thing. When it comes to choosing the charities, I want to change things up. I'm thinking normally it's the committee that makes the decision, but once we've got the shortlist, I think it's important to go out into the campus, walk around with a clipboard, I don't know, have ballot boxes, have our T-shirts on. Hopefully there'll be more people involved by then, and get students deciding what they want, what charities they don't want. I thought that might be one way of getting raising awareness. Using media, so using social networking, but also StagTV, Stag Radio, like I mentioned. It worked before, so I think it should work again, I believe, from speaking to an ex-RAG chair.
Okay. We had a hand spring up at the back there. Chris. Behind Chris. Yes. In the gloom.
Can I ask a question to the postgrad officers?
Yeah, of course you can. That's why they're here.
How would you integrate freshers, so 18, 19-year-olds coming into university, to with postgrads who are a bit older, sort of mid to late 20s? Obviously, there's quite a big age gap. What would you do to integrate them as best as possible?
Richard?
I'm only in my mid-20s. Ignore the haircut. With sports, it's a case of the social side. If you're good at a sport, the age thing shouldn't matter. And for a lot of societies, whether they be religious-based societies or awareness-based societies, if you're a believer in that cause, that should give you the integration that you need to fit in with the group. Beyond that, it's then a case of socialising, and for me, that's going out. But that's not the case for everyone. And Surrey provides great social opportunities, whether it be nights on the tiles or nights in, pizza nights, movie nights. We all go to these sort of things with our clubs. And just keeping that going is a good way to engage undergrads and postgrads together, I think.
Thank you. Adam?
Can we clarify the question, please? I think I misheard.
Would you like to clarify your question, please?
Sorry, I misheard.
No, that's quite all right.
Sorry.
Boom.
Sorry. My question was, how would you integrate undergraduates, so 18-year-olds, with postgraduates who are quite a bit older?
Oh, okay. So this isn't entirely different. Integration comes from the societies themselves. Most societies are jam-packed full of undergraduates. Very, very interesting societies that can interest a postgraduate. We're all very similar people. We're all in the same university. So integration, like Richard said, it comes when you're passionate about something within a university. So if you're not encouraged to step forward and be part of the university through the union or through events or society trading or anything like that, this integration will disappear. And that's why I believe we have to have someone to encourage that actively rather than passively go, oh, just turn up to a freshers fair or freshers fair. And freshers fair has a problem as well. Like we said, not all the societies turn up, and that's the problem we've got.
Thank you. I'm going to start to wrap this up now. We've had a rather highbrow conversation. I must say that it was a slightly glib comment about Charlie. Of course, there is a private ballot when you do vote, but we do like to know that the candidates can make tough decisions when the pressure's on, and that's the point in doing some of these showcase questions for the VPs. Now, I'm going to just ask you, Ruth. We've talked about your aspirations. We've talked about what you want to do with RAG. In 12 months' time, what would be your measure of success? How will you know you've done a good job 12 months from today?
12 months from today, I want everyone, well, a majority of campus to know what RAG is, know that it exists.
That could be from you of having a disastrous event and losing 25,000.
It could. But hopefully that won't be the case. Let's be optimistic. And I hope that we've raised double, triple. I haven't been told how much we've raised or not raised this year. But I don't know if that number can be expressed.
Peg yourself to a figure? And what your target is?
It depends what everyone wants to get involved with. If say 15 people wanted to climb Kilimanjaro or did an Everest base or trail break, you have to raise £2,850. So if 20 people did, I can't do maths, but God.
You're not the RAG treasurer, are you?
Yes, I can have a treasurer, it's okay. Yeah, put a figure on it, I don't know.
At least £25.
At least £5,000.
At least £5,000. Your measure of success is at least 5,000.
But that's just from like raids and everything and out fundraising. If we did more big events like jailbreak and everything else, I think we can raise way, way, way more. Okay.
Gentlemen, I'm going to start with you, Adam. lots of undergrads in the audience and watching online. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to an undergraduate student today?
An undergraduate who would be going into postgraduate, you're saying?
No, just an undergraduate student. You've been an undergrad, you've gone through the system. What's the one bit of advice that you would give them today?
Work hard and love what you're doing. It's one of those things where integration is crucial to being who you are and the value you can get out of university. I mean, if you can forge an identity for yourself here, you can have an amazing amount of fun. You know? So that's what I say, work hard and love what you're doing.
Thank you. Richard?
Have the most fun you can while you're an undergrad, because everything afterwards is downhill. Don't be under any illusions. Those of us that went on to continue being postgraduates is because we like being students. And even your lecturers, who might seem very dull and boring, it's because they're scared of the real world that they stay in academia. So make sure you have a great time while you are undergrads. And if you feel like it, continue to be a postgrad and continue to give back to the society, which should give something to you while you're here.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We'd have a wonderful conversation. Back to StagTV, they've got some comments on this. And then we shall be back after the break with some more candidates in Surrey Decides.
Hello and welcome back to Pundits Corner. I'm Tiffany, and don't forget that you can follow us on all of our social media today. So StagTV are out there, and don't forget to listen to Stag Radio as well. You can tune in there. We've got the Stag tweeting for us as well. So welcome, pundits. Welcome, welcome. Now, I think we should discuss postgraduate development officer first. So, there are a huge proportion of postgraduate students at this university.
How many?
Now, listen, I've been told that there are around 6,000 postgraduate, students, which is a pretty big number. Do we think that, taking into consideration all of the concerns and issues from postgraduate students, is too big a task for one candidate? We have very passionate candidates here. Two very passionate candidates. Ollie, is it too much for one person to handle, do we think?
It's difficult because during my 4 years at this university, I didn't think that postgraduates were very well represented. Actually, when Aaron Steers was the postgraduate officer, I thought he made a good fist at it. You know, he tried. And then last year I was a postgraduate at another university, and I didn't really see any representation for postgraduates at that particular university. So actually it's a very, very difficult job. However, Richard, for me, stood out in that debate because not only does he have the experience, but he sort of had the ideas and he had the answers at the right juncture. So he did an undergraduate degree at Exeter, which is a relatively similar institution to ours, and then he did another degree at Loughborough. So he's got the benefit of going to 3 different universities, seeing a bit of best practice and hopefully bringing it here. So for me, I think he was a clear winner in that debate, and hopefully he can be successful.
I mean, obviously we have very strong candidates, but also in Adam's manifesto he mentions representation and how our postgraduate students need to be represented. So Mike, I'm going to come to you and ask you what you think. Is it too much for one person not to handle, because obviously, but is it too much for them?
Well, I think you've got to remember that there are other roles in the elections as well, which are also looking after a large amount of students. I mean, so the postgraduate officer looks after about 6,000. Yeah. The president looks after them all.
That's true.
So there's no real distinction for the president's role in saying, well, maybe we should have 2 presidents. I mean, well, technically we have the vice presidents, I guess. But I mean, I don't think it is a big job necessarily. I mean, I haven't done the role myself, but I think if someone sort of puts their mind to it, they can make of it what they want, really.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Nice answers. So, we also had a lot of talk from our candidates about integrating undergraduates with postgraduates. So, Ian, what do you think about that? Me personally, being an undergraduate, I don't feel that there is a huge presence of postgraduate students. I know there's a very small proportion compared to undergraduates, but what do you think?
obviously speaking from being an undergraduate myself, it's difficult to say what a postgraduate wants, but from my perspective, what I've seen, I think quite a lot of postgraduates want to take their course seriously, they want to sort of do studies and they want to get involved with that, but they also still want to get involved with societies. And they still play a major part in quite a lot of society around campus. And it's trying to sort of work together. It's not just about you're a postgraduate or you're an undergraduate. It's about making sure you bring the two together. And in certain societies, they work together in certain ways. Each can bring different things to that role. Some have got more experience than others. Others might have different interests. But you working together, you bring things to the fore that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Definitely. Barry, I'm going to come to you. What do you think about integrating the undergraduates with the postgraduates? How important is that to the university as a whole?
I think it's essential. The difficulty, I mean, in my experience of postgraduates, they have completely different issues usually to undergraduates. I know you can't generalise, but I'm just about to.
That's fine.
And they tend to have less money, they tend to have more commitments, they may have family commitments as well. As far as the sports clubs are concerned, a lot of clubs wouldn't run without postgraduate input, and we need to hang on to them because we need their expertise. For many sports to go from nothing to accomplish it in 4 years is just not possible. So you're relying on people outside of that immediate cohort, which is the undergraduate. I think it's absolutely essential that the union, the university, everybody involved does everything they can to integrate, properly integrate all students wherever they're from.
There's a place to start with this, I think, and it's with mature students. So where's the dialogue between postgraduate students and more mature students in the first instance? But also, why not deal with postgraduate issues and undergraduate issues on the same basis? You know, they've got the same sort of concerns around education, around welfare. So it should be the responsibility of the president, the education VP, the welfare VP to treat those issues in an integrated manner. So it's, you know, it's not just the role of the postgraduate officer. The postgraduate officer should be there lobbying those individuals and lobbying the university. And as I said, I think Aaron Steers did a pretty good job of that when he was the postgraduate officer during my time. Some people disagree about his methodology, but actually he did push those particular issues. And, you know, whoever's elected in this particular position can take, you know, a few lessons from that.
Yeah.
I can see Alan looking at me out the corner of my eye. Hi Alan, you're right.
So Paul, what's happening on Twitter? What are our lovely audience saying about this particular discussion?
We've had a fair amount of feedback from people. People seem to like what Ruth is saying about RAG. We've also had a few comments about the postgrads, and the postgrad development officers as well. It seems that nobody, like, there's a lot of things about undergraduates getting on board with what the postgraduates, why they should be interested. Initially we had a few people saying, why should that affect me? I think by that final question, asking related to the undergraduates in particular, who will be doing a lot of the voting, that we're starting to see more people getting on side. But generally quite positive feedback on the things that have been said.
Good. Well, before we move on to RAG, that I've been speaking to some postgraduates to kind of see what they would want from their development officer, and one thing has kept cropping up, which is they don't feel like there is a career support system in place for them to go beyond university outside their post-graduation. So what do we think about that, Ian? What do you think?
I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it? If that's the problem that they suffer with, and that's maybe something you need to sort of gauge with the postgrads, maybe it's worth having a sort of discussion. But I know, like, for example, this year, how postgrads have had a lot more offered by how Chris has done in his role. And it's about getting someone in that role who can work with the postgrads and work out exactly what they want. It's about the communication, how they find out that. It's about having links in there. And I think Chris is a postgrad himself, so you don't have to be a postgrad to get this role, but obviously the two candidates running are.
And obviously both candidates have said about communication. Clearly this is a very important part of it, is getting that communication and making sure that they have that support in place. So I'm going to go over to Mike. What do you think about the career support that we do have in place, and what can be developed?
Well, I mean, from my understanding, the University of Surrey has one of the highest employment rates amongst many of the universities. Now, to me, I think it was about 94%, I think I last read as a statistic. Does that include postgraduate students? Because if it is 94% with all with postgraduate and undergraduate, is there an issue? I mean, okay, there might be an issue for the 6%, but we don't know why those 6% didn't go on into employment. They might have gone into further courses or something like that. So I would question potentially the statistical basis. I mean, I don't know where that 94% has come from. That might just be undergraduates, and it might be 12% of postgraduates that actually have a job after their their studies. But always, I mean, if there's an issue, then that is obviously something to solve. So if from your research you found a lot of postgraduate students are struggling, then that is a very tangible issue that the postgraduate officer-elect can actually go out and fix.
Definitely. Well, did somebody say in the debate that the postgraduate advisor had been cut from the career service?
Been axed,
Well, there's your first campaign, surely.
Yeah.
You know, these guys who are running should be running on a platform saying, you know, why has this happened? You know, are we going to be campaigning to bring this back? Because to me, you might have a 94% rate now, but if you start cutting the career service, that's going to diminish over time. So what's the rationale behind that, and why is there not a campaign being run about that? That's one issue the postgraduate student development officer could go after immediately.
Definitely. So now that we've discussed postgraduate, let's move on to RAG. Now, this has obviously been a very big topic because, as we heard from the debate, RAG have actually lost money this year, and this is going to be a monumental task to get things back on track and to go into profit. So, I'm going to make this a general question. What can be done, what needs to be done differently to make sure that RAG are making money and having, you know, that kind of input into campus? What needs to be done?
If I can just, from with some of the societies that I was on, I think MadSoc was one of the ones which actually has a similar issue.
Yeah.
And it very much is a fluctuation between the year. So, for instance, there might just have been an issue with funding. I don't know. I mean, without looking into...
MadSoc delivers a service. RAG is supposed to raise money.
True.
There's
true.
The fluctuation, that's not an excuse, I'm afraid.
No, but it's down to the committee, though, isn't it? I mean, the committee this year might be far better and may supersede all previous records for funding that all the balance. So it is. I think the fluctuation comes about from the committee and the committee management. Now, I'm not saying that the RAG committee from that year were rubbish.
No.
Because we don't know what happened. I mean, there might have been some catastrophic issue. I mean, for instance, all of their stuff might have been flooded out. They might have lost all the stuff and they had to rebuy new stock or something. I don't know. But it's, I think, down to committees, and I think it's a changing thing every year.
I mean, you're saying what can be done differently. You know, to me, it's the time. Students can give time, but they shouldn't be asked to give money. Everybody says students are poor. That's what we've always heard all the time. If they can engage better with Guildford or the wider Surrey, it's one of the richest places in the country. With the right campaigns and the right ability, then surely to raise awareness of the university generally and to give money through RAG is not beyond further thought.
So do we think it is a case that maybe this year was was due to the fact that a lot of students haven't got enough money, haven't got...
Well, the answer to that is none of us know, do we?
None of us know.
Yeah, but you know, we've lived in a recession for the last 4 years, and every single year Comic Relief breaks records.
Yeah.
Every single year Sport Relief breaks records. So the British public give. So to me, it seems like there's been mismanagement. But you know, obviously we can't.
Yeah, obviously we don't know.
But let's divert it to Ruth. She sounded really enthusiastic.
She did, yeah.
She sounds like she's got really good ideas. If I was voting, I'd have confidence in her ability to actually deliver a profit next year and to be able to donate money to whoever she whichever organisation or charity they elect to donate to.
Make a comment on what's happened this year, because on my understanding, because I've sort of seen what's happening a little bit within RAG this year, and I think it's mainly down to the safe sex ball they've run this year.
Yeah.
And they bought some like underwear and all that was going to be a main sort of push for it, and they were supposed to be people buying this underwear. But the problem is the cost they paid for them, I believe, was a lot more than what they actually managed to get back for them. So that's how they lost their money, mainly from that, and they're not buying 12 things going not exactly well. But moving on, maybe next year you need someone that's going to have some more experience in this, knows how to sort of manage costs, finances, look at what comes in, what comes out, and it needs to be really tight on the financial side. And maybe work with local communities is a great idea as well. We could get money externally from outside of just the Surrey community.
So do we think that there's only one candidate for RAG Chair? Do we think that the loss that they've made has made an impact on the fact that people maybe think this is too hard, I can't do it? Is that why there's only one candidate?
Yeah, people are frightened of taking on the responsibility, aren't they, at the end of the day? So, to be honest, normally I'd be disappointed there's only one candidate, but actually, judging by what she said at the hustings and, you know, the way she presented herself, I think she's a really good candidate. So, you know, I hope that people get behind her. She gets a committee together that can raise a lot of money for a lot of good causes. So, I think that's all there really is to say on that one.
Paul, what are people saying on Twitter about RAG? What's going on?
I think a lot of people were surprised to learn about the fact that RAG has lost more money than it's raised last year. There seems to be a big issue about the fact that people agree that it hasn't really got out there, as well as losing things that are due before, like Jailbreak, which is coming out soon, which would have been done by RAG, but now isn't, is given off to another society. As for what Ruth's been saying, I think on the whole, it's quite positive feedback. A lot of people thinking that she's got a good idea of what the problems are and ideas of how they can be solved. But yeah, I think quite positive feedback.
And she's going to climb Kilimanjaro. So, you know.
I mean, it's all about having the enthusiasm as well to go into that role and actually do something with it and take it forward. I think there's no point going into a role, especially like RAG, where it's a lot of sort of being willing with your time and being able to go out there and do something you want to do. You need to be inspired by doing that. Unless you go into that role with that sort of idea, you're not going to get a team behind you that's going to want to out and campaign so hard.
Well, I think that's a point you definitely made, saying that people first do need to invest their time, and that once you get the people's enthusiasm, then that is a wonderful, wonderful start.
I think she came across very enthusiastic. I was disappointed she didn't commit to a figure.
Yeah.
I think that would have...
I'm very sorry, but I have to cut you off, everyone. We are now going back, so thank you very much for joining us here.